Christian Horner's revenge on Red Bull has just been leaked after he decided to immediately join Alpine as team principal. Stay until the end to discover all the secret techniques from Red Bull's engineers that he wants to use at Alpine to build a car similar to the Red Bull. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Christian Horner's dramatic and unforeseen departure from Red Bull Racing has shattered the foundations of a Formula One dynasty he painstakingly constructed over the course of 20 relentless years. The architect behind an empire, the man who transformed a modest midfield team into an indomitable powerhouse, has been cast aside in a whirlwind of speculation, internal turmoil, and unresolved tension. What was once a throne built on dominance, tactical genius, and unshakable influence has suddenly turned into exile. He is no longer the calculating commander orchestrating every move from the pit wall, but rather a figure surrounded by unanswered questions, swirling rumors, and a vacuum of power that has left the entire motorsport world spinning. In the corridors of power where decisions shape the trajectory of seasons, there's now a seismic shift in focus. Horner, once untouchable, now sits at the center of a whirlwind that no one can ignore. Team executives whisper, advisors lean in closer, and the chessboard of Formula One politics begins to twist into unfamiliar patterns. Because for all the noise, one thing remains irrefutable: Horner knows how to win. He doesn't just adapt, he rewrites rulebooks, bends limitations, and engineers transformation. He's a disruptor cloaked in a strategist's mind, and even in scandal shadow, his ability to reshape organizations commands undeniable respect. There's no shortage of speculation over where he might reappear, but few names generate as much intrigue and concern as Alpine. A team clawing to reclaim purpose, gasping for identity, and drifting amid executive reshuffles, Alpine sits on the precipice of becoming either a cautionary tale or the phoenix of modern F1. Their factory operation, once brimming with promise, now lurches forward without coherence, ambition outpacing infrastructure, and patience evaporating with each lackluster performance. Yet, paradoxically, this environment might be exactly where Horner thrives best. He is no stranger to dysfunction. In fact, he has historically turned dysfunction into domination. Chaos becomes opportunity when in the hands of someone who sees a fractured structure not as a deterrent, but as raw material for reinvention. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Alpine's problems are not superficial, they are systemic, cultural, philosophical. The layers of stagnation that have enveloped the team would be suffocating to most. But Horner doesn't operate within conventional limits. His tenure at Red Bull was marked by disruption, rebellion against complacency, and an obsession with efficiency. If Alpine's hierarchy dares to relinquish control, to place their fate in the hands of a man who demands authority and delivers results, the entire identity of the team could be ripped apart and rebuilt brick by brick into something entirely new, something that finally lives up to its potential rather than just its branding. Yet the risks are immense. Horner's presence carries with it a storm of controversy, unspoken allegations, and fractured alliances. Bringing him into a manufacturer-backed project invites scrutiny, backlash, and possibly internal resistance. It's not just a personnel change, it's a philosophical rupture. But Formula One has never been a sport for the timid. Redemption stories, dramatic comebacks, and reputational reinventions are embedded in its DNA. One season of podiums, a surprise win under the lights, or a resurgence in the constructors' table could erase months of negative headlines. Victories tend to silence critics faster than any press release. Behind the scenes, murmurs echo from other corners of the grid. Audi's forthcoming transformation of Sauber into a full-fledged factory outfit may call for a leadership figure capable of commanding a global project with precision and purpose. Horner fits that bill with eerie perfection. Williams, seeking revival amid its American-owned renaissance, could be another wild card in this unfolding drama, especially if their vision includes not just rebuilding but reinventing. Even Aston Martin, with its glossy ambition and billionaire-fueled acceleration, could see value in injecting proven brilliance into their quest for legitimacy. In short, Horner isn't chasing opportunities, he is the opportunity, and the very existence of his availability is shaking the paddock's foundations. But amid all the speculation, power plays, and strategic positioning, lies a deeper question: what does Horner truly desire? Is this the beginning of revenge dressed as a comeback? Is he seeking to reclaim something stolen or escape something rotten? Or has this rupture awakened something new, something liberated, something even more dangerous? A man no longer confined by brand loyalty or internal politics, but free to sculpt a fresh empire on his own terms? He didn't just lose a title, He lost control over a narrative he authored for 2 decades. Yet if there's anything his story has proven, it's that those who build dynasties rarely accept exile. They re-emerge sharper, more dangerous, and more willing than ever to rewrite fate. The next chapter of his journey won't be about a team. It will be about impact, disruption, and making sure that wherever he walks next, the tremors won't just be felt, they'll be impossible to ignore. Subscribe to stay informed about the latest Formula One news. Alpine stands on a razor's edge, teetering between irrelevance and implosion, its trajectory as uncertain as ever. The Enstone-based team is gripped by a sense of confusion, its performances on race weekends flickering like a broken signal, one moment functional, the next utterly lifeless. Pierre Gasly, the only beacon of consistency in a sea of underachievement, has scraped together a scant 11 points, hardly enough to justify optimism, and certainly not sufficient to silence growing concerns. The other 2 drivers, Jack Doohan and Franco Colapinto, remain ghostly presences on the scoreboard, their potential buried under layers of missed opportunities, questionable development, and tactical inertia. Their failure to score is not a mere reflection of inexperience, it's a glowing red warning sign of a team without direction, structure, or coherence. The choice to field such a disparate trio, Gasly, the seasoned survivor, Doohan, the work in progress, and Colapinto, the high-stakes experiment, speaks volumes about Alpine's underlying disorder. There's no philosophical backbone binding these drivers into a single strategy. It feels like a roulette table disguised as a racing team, hoping that luck will succeed where planning has failed. And lurking behind this disarray is the looming shadow of Flavio Briatore. His highly publicized return has sparked controversy, headlines, and speculation, but not results. His presence is felt more in whispers and rumors than in lap times or podiums. Briatore remains a magnetic figure, a walking paradox of charm and chaos, but that aura has yet to translate into anything meaningful for the team. He's more a symbol of old battles than a general for new wars. Simultaneously, the introduction of Steve Nielsen into a leadership role has only added another layer of complexity. Though officially tasked with overseeing operations, there's an unspoken understanding throughout the paddock that true authority rests elsewhere. Every major whisper, every critical pivot, seems to trace a line back to Briatore's unseen hand. It's a leadership model held together by tension and ambiguity, a structure where influence outweighs title, and where decision-making is a murky blend of hierarchy and personality. This kind of dual command, where 2 figures appear to be steering the same ship in different directions, breeds confusion and conflict rather than cohesion. Strategy is paralyzed. Clarity is nowhere to be found. Now, the paddock buzzes with the possibility of Christian Horner stepping into this swirling vortex of uncertainty. His name alone brings both excitement and apprehension. He's not just a team principal, he's a builder, a tactician, a fighter who transformed Red Bull from ambitious upstart into relentless powerhouse. The notion of Horner entering this fragile ecosystem is electrifying. It could be a masterstroke, or a meltdown. With so many personalities already colliding within Alpine's walls, the arrival of yet another commanding presence risks igniting a firestorm of egos and agendas. But it could also serve as a long-overdue reset button, tearing down the crumbling scaffolding and replacing it with vision, discipline, and clarity. Their past makes things even more complicated. Horner and Briatore are not strangers. Their history runs deep, their interactions shaped by mutual recognition and calculated respect. They are 2 power brokers from different schools of thought, each as cunning as the other. Their dynamic could go either way, collision or collaboration. If they click, if they find synergy rather than friction, Alpine could become the most radically transformed team in recent Formula One history. Horner's measured authority might reign in Briatore's theatrical instincts, while Briatore's raw aggression might ignite a new fire in Horner's leadership. Together, they could forge a union of intellect and intensity, a partnership that fuses structure with swagger. But the stakes are colossal. Horner's reputation has already taken hits, from behind-the-scenes turmoil to headline-grabbing allegations, and the addition of Briatore to his orbit only intensifies the spotlight. Aligning himself with a man whose legacy includes both glory and scandal could invite further scrutiny, provoke backlash, and stretch public patience. Sponsors may raise eyebrows. Critics may sharpen their knives. Yet the potential payoff remains too tempting to ignore. In a sport driven by risk and reward, this move, dangerous as it may be, could yield seismic results. This isn't a simple leadership transition. It's a potential tectonic shift. A clash of icons. A fusion of old-school bravado and modern strategic might. It might tear Alpine apart. It might drag them even deeper into the abyss. Or just maybe, it could be the jolt that finally awakens a sleeping giant. Everything hangs in the balance. Gasly's predicament is far more than a professional crossroads. It's a deeply embedded emotional wound that continues to sting. When Christian Horner cut short his Red Bull career after a mere 13 races, it wasn't just a tactical shuffle. It was a public stripping of confidence, a high-speed crash of ambition witnessed by millions. Gasly wasn't demoted. He was exposed, criticized, and tossed aside before he had a genuine chance to evolve. Since then, he's clawed his way back with grit and determination, proving race after race that he never lacked the skill, only the trust. Every strong performance with AlphaTauri was a silent act of defiance, a statement that he still belonged. And now, after years of rebuilding, the very figure who orchestrated his downfall is rumored to be stepping into the place Gasly now calls home. That isn't just awkward, it's a potential psychological minefield. You can't erase history with a handshake. You can't undo public humiliation with corporate strategy meetings. If Horner ends up at Alpine, the emotional gravity of the situation will be immediate and unavoidable. The glances exchanged in the garage, the tension lingering in driver debriefs, the fragile balance between professionalism and unresolved resentment, none of it will be subtle. Alpine would need more than just good intentions to navigate that storm. They would need brutal transparency, raw conversations, and a level of emotional intelligence rarely seen in Formula One boardrooms. Because if that resentment brews beneath the surface, it won't just affect Gasly, it will ripple through every part of the team's structure. And Christian Horner doesn't arrive without shadows. His legacy is defined as much by controversy as by achievement. He's a master tactician, yes, but also a divisive figure whose very presence changes the air in a room. His leadership style, relentless, authoritative, unapologetically driven, has shaped champions and shattered egos. For every brilliant strategic decision, there's a trail of relationships left frayed. Some revere him as a genius, others view him as a manipulator with a ruthless streak. That kind of persona doesn't simply blend into a new team culture, it consumes it, reshapes it, and sometimes tears it apart. If Alpine brings him in, they're not just hiring a team boss, they're unleashing a force. And unless they prepare for the shockwaves, they may find themselves destabilized before they even get out of the garage. At the same time, Maranello hasn't stopped murmuring. Christian Horner's name continues to echo through the corridors of Ferrari like a specter from another era. The romanticism of the Todt Schumacher dynasty still haunts the team's highest offices. They want more than success. They crave legend, dominance, permanence. Fred Vasseur brings order, stability, structure, but not inspiration. He hasn't ignited the fire Ferrari fans crave. Charles Leclerc is no longer the wide-eyed talent with infinite patience. Lewis Hamilton didn't join the red team to rebuild, he came to conquer. And both of them are waiting for more than promises. They want execution, action, transformation. In the vacuum of results, Horner's allure grows. His reputation as a strategic warlord, a builder of empires, a mind capable of turning chaos into championships, it all becomes tempting. Even with the baggage. Even with the scandals. Even with the noise. And yet, there's danger in that temptation. Horner isn't a quiet solution, he's a storm. His recent controversies, regardless of how they were resolved legally, have painted him in polarizing colors. The media won't let it go. Rivals won't forget. Fans won't be silent. Ferrari is already a pressure cooker. Introducing Horner could turn up the heat to unbearable levels. But greatness often comes with risk. The question is whether Ferrari is willing to bet their future on a man who has both conquered and divided in equal measure. Whether Alpine dares to fuse fire with fragility. Whether Horner can walk into a new chapter without igniting old tensions. Every option is a gamble. Every path is volatile. And right now, the sport is holding its breath, waiting to see which fuse gets lit first. Despite being officially exonerated by Red Bull's internal probe, the scandal linked to Christian Horner's alleged misconduct still clings to him like an indelible stain, one that refuses to fade no matter how many headlines shift to newer dramas. His name, once synonymous with dominance, ambition, and sharp leadership, now ignites unease and whispers in every paddock corner, sponsor meeting, and executive boardroom. In the unforgiving world of Formula One, where perception carries more weight than truth, and every misstep is amplified under a global microscope, his public image remains precariously fragile. Teams may acknowledge his tactical brilliance, his unmatched record of success, and his role in building one of the most powerful dynasties in modern motorsport, but that doesn't mean they're ready to invite him into their inner circles. Not when every move is monitored by fans, the press, and fiercely brand-conscious investors. Nowhere is that apprehension more glaring than in Italy, where Ferrari, a team built on legend, prestige, and relentless scrutiny, has reportedly slammed the brakes on any consideration of Horner's arrival. Behind closed doors in Maranello, the mere suggestion of appointing someone so polarizing sparked more anxiety than excitement. This isn't about credentials or experience. It's about optics, politics, and preserving the carefully constructed image of a team that still carries the burden of its mythos. For the prancing horse, aligning with someone carrying the weight of such controversy would be like injecting chaos into a machine already pressured by generations of expectation. No matter how capable he may be, Horner's presence could ignite a media frenzy that overshadows performance and turns every Grand Prix weekend into a soap opera. The leaks emerging from within the Italian press circles reveal a chilling shift in sentiment. Ferrari's curiosity, once tentatively warm, has now cooled to near zero. What once may have been viewed as an opportunity to acquire a proven winner has quickly transformed into a risk too volatile to handle. For an organization already living under the constant magnifying glass of national pride, emotional tifosi, and an unrelenting media circus, embracing someone like Horner would be akin to setting off a powder keg. They don't want a savior who brings turbulence. They want control, narrative stability, and a figurehead who won't invite additional storms into their already charged atmosphere. Elsewhere in the paddock, the sentiment is no less cautious. Even if a team were to look beyond the controversy, Horner remains contractually handcuffed. A strict gardening leave clause ensures he's barred from stepping into any operational role until the end of 2025. That timeline isn't just inconvenient, it's a strategic lockdown. In a sport where milliseconds matter and future success is mapped out years in advance, being frozen out during a transitional phase could be career-defining. This enforced silence is both a sanctuary and a prison. It grants him the chance to let the spotlight drift elsewhere, to quietly rebuild his image, to let the noise die down. But it also bars him from influencing what may become the most transformative phase in modern Formula One history. By the time 2026 arrives, the sport will have changed. The rulebook will be different, the power units will evolve, and the pecking order could be flipped. For a man who spent his career orchestrating every fine detail of development, innovation, and timing, being sidelined during such a monumental reshuffling is nothing short of torment. The foundational decisions that will shape competitiveness for the next decade, chassis concepts, aerodynamic architecture, hybrid power integration, will already be etched in stone by the time he's eligible to return. The blueprints will be drawn, the budgets allocated, and the strategies committed. If a team falters in that new landscape, Horner won't bear the blame, but neither will he have had the chance to guide their vision. And in Formula One, influence is everything. The notion of watching from the outside as the sport pivots into a new era, one of regulatory overhaul, technical reinvention, and competitive unpredictability, must feel like slow torture for someone so intrinsically tied to every race weekend's heartbeat. The rhythm of strategy, the constant pulse of innovation, the high-stakes gamble of pit calls and development battles, all out of reach. He's a mastermind without a board, a conductor without an orchestra, forced into silence while others reshape the very world he once dominated. There's no solace in being innocent when the narrative has already painted you as problematic. Meanwhile, his every move remains under surveillance. A casual dinner, a fleeting conversation, a rumor dropped during a press event, each can trigger a tidal wave of speculation. The narrative is no longer about whether he's the best candidate. It's about whether the sport, the sponsors, the media, and the fans are prepared to accept him without resurrecting the chaos that once consumed the headlines. The shadow he casts is long, and even in his absence, he dominates the conversation. Teams are wary. Executives hesitate. Stakeholders calculate every variable, wondering if aligning with Horner is worth the reputational turbulence it might spark. As the engines prepare to roar again and Formula One hurtles toward a future shaped by sustainability, innovation, and a thirst for parity, Christian Horner waits. A titan of team leadership, a lightning rod of controversy, an undeniable force still tethered to the sidelines. He may be out of the spotlight, but he's not forgotten. He remains the wild card everyone watches, the figure who could rewrite a team's fortunes or plunge them into relentless drama. And as the paddock marches forward, the question isn't whether Horner still has value. It's whether anyone dares to let him wield it again. Outside of Alpine and Ferrari, two teams where Horner's name has been whispered with increasing intensity, there's another contender lurking just beneath the surface. One that's more unpredictable, more volatile, and possibly even more dangerous: Aston Martin. Lawrence Stroll has never been the type to tiptoe around the edges. He doesn't play it safe, and he certainly doesn't think small. This is the man who dragged a midfield team into a billion-dollar evolution, stacked it with high-profile drivers, lured key personnel from rival squads, and set up a high-tech base that rivals any F1 headquarters in the world. For someone like him, the idea of partnering with Horner, a mastermind of Red Bull's rise, a political chess player, a figure impossible to ignore, must be tempting beyond measure. It would be a declaration of supremacy. A shot fired straight at the heart of Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. But the allure of that power move might come at an unbearable cost. Because wrapped inside that tantalizing proposition is a storm just waiting to erupt. Horner's fallout with Red Bull wasn't just a quiet disagreement swept under the carpet. It was a fracture that split one of the most dominant teams in F1 history, and at the epicenter of that rupture was none other than Adrian Newey. The genius engineer. The architect of championships. The man whose pen sketches turned into world-beating machines. For years, Newey and Horner operated side by side, their partnership yielding trophies and legacy. But recent reports point to escalating conflict, creative clashes, and mounting friction that ultimately pushed Newey to pack up and walk away. His departure wasn't coincidental. It wasn't routine. It was the kind of exit that leaves behind bruises, bitterness, and boundaries. And now, Aston Martin, hungry for a technical renaissance, has been courting Newey with unwavering persistence. They've rolled out the red carpet, opened every door, and laid out an irresistible vision of creative control and limitless resources. Everything has been building toward the dream of anchoring their future to his extraordinary mind. But bringing Horner into that equation is like throwing gasoline on a lit fuse. Their recent history is toxic, explosive, and impossible to ignore. If Stroll were to prioritize Horner's command over Newey's genius, it could implode any deal that's been years in the making. Newey is not a man who tolerates interference. He walks when trust is broken. And if he senses even a flicker of the old Red Bull dysfunction at Silverstone, he could vanish overnight, perhaps straight into Ferrari's eager hands, or McLaren's open arms. The very idea that Horner's arrival could obliterate Aston Martin's chance to secure the most valuable technical mind of a generation isn't just risky, it's potentially catastrophic. But what if that door is locked? What if Aston Martin, despite all the noise, becomes an impossibility? Where does a man like Horner go? He's not the type to drift quietly into obscurity. He doesn't fade, he evolves. His influence, after all, wasn't built solely on championships or car design. It was constructed on power plays, political instincts, and strategic maneuvering across every inch of Formula One's power structure. For over a decade, Horner didn't just run a team, he shaped the narrative of the sport. So what if his next chapter isn't about racing at all? What if it's about governance, authority, and global influence? What if Horner, in a move as audacious as it is controversial, sets his sights on the top job in motorsport, the FIA presidency? It sounds outrageous, maybe even absurd. The FIA isn't just a figurehead position. It's a battlefield of diplomacy, a balancing act between integrity, commerce, and politics. It demands transparency, global respect, and the ability to weather storms both internal and external. Horner, despite his strategic brilliance, carries a storm cloud of his own. His exit from Red Bull was enveloped in scandal, allegations that, while never proven in court, have stuck to his name like glue. In global sports, perception often outweighs truth. Trust, once cracked, doesn't simply heal. And in the political sphere, trust is everything. It's the currency that buys influence, builds coalitions, and sustains legitimacy. Even if Horner were to push past every legal obstacle, even if his record were to be shielded by the glow of his Red Bull legacy, the mere idea of him as FIA president would ignite controversy. The headlines would be relentless. The backlash from federations, media, sponsors, it would be overwhelming. The whispers in corridors, the opposition from within, the discomfort in boardrooms, it would all boil into a war of ideology, image, and control. Horner, for all his talents, would be walking into a hurricane. Not on the grid, but in the nerve center of global motorsport, where every move is dissected, every word amplified, and every misstep could shake the entire structure of the sport. So what now? What's the next destination for someone too influential to be ignored and too divisive to be embraced without resistance? Horner isn't finished. He's far from irrelevant. His career, his reach, his ambitions, they're too deeply embedded in the DNA of Formula One to simply vanish. Whatever his next move may be, it won't be quiet, it won't be simple, and it certainly won't go unnoticed. Whether it unfolds behind the scenes or explodes on the public stage, Horner's return, if and when it happens, won't just shape the story. It will be the story. And when it does, the entire world of motorsport will be watching. Closely, relentlessly, suspiciously. What truly lies ahead for Christian Horner? Not in soft speculation or hopeful assumptions, but in the harsh, cutthroat, high-stakes arena that defines Formula One. After decades at the summit, wielding power with confidence and navigating the political jungle with unmatched finesse, he now finds himself in unfamiliar terrain. No longer the untouchable architect of dominance, but a man surrounded by doubt, controversy, and the relentless scrutiny of a paddock that no longer sees him as a sure bet. His achievements remain monumental, his victories undeniable, but the world around him has changed. His name, once synonymous with control and strategy, now triggers division. Allies are cautious, rivals emboldened, and the silence from the sport's upper echelons grows louder by the day. Behind every smile in the paddock is a calculation. Every handshake is laced with hesitation. His former aura of certainty is now entangled with complexity. Some view him as a fallen mastermind, others as a misunderstood leader caught in the crossfire of forces beyond his control. But no one can ignore him. No one can pretend he doesn't matter. Because he still does. Power like his doesn't simply evaporate. Influence doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers. It haunts. And it waits for the right moment to strike back. For the right opportunity to remind everyone that the man who shaped a dynasty isn't finished, not even close. And that opportunity may be knocking louder than ever. A team with ambition but without direction. Resources but no roadmap. Pride but no purpose. Alpine. A project with potential yet plagued by inconsistency. A brand craving leadership that can match its vision. The stars don't align often in Formula One, but when desperation meets experience, something explosive can happen. Could Horner, with all his scars and all his fire, be the shockwave Alpine never saw coming? Could he be the catalyst that turns chaos into clarity, mediocrity into menace, and ambition into execution? The risk is massive. The noise would be deafening. It wouldn't just be a hiring, it would be a declaration. A signal that Alpine refuses to fade quietly into the midfield, that they're willing to grab headlines, challenge tradition, and bet on a man whose mere presence would force every other team to reevaluate their strategies. Horner doesn't walk into a room unnoticed. He doesn't play to survive. He plays to dominate. And that energy, that fearlessness, that refusal to be anyone's second option, could be exactly what Alpine needs. Or it could blow everything up. But does Horner still have the hunger? Not the superficial ambition of a man clinging to relevance, but the relentless, obsessive fire that made him a force in the first place. Is there still that burning urge to rebuild, to reassert control, to shut down critics not with speeches but with results? Can he, stripped of the Red Bull empire, build something from scratch? Can he take the chaos of Alpine and mold it into something that commands respect, that earns points, that delivers pain to the giants of the grid? Or has the sport moved on without him? Have the politics, the damage to his reputation, the slow erosion of loyalty taken too great a toll? Will his next move be a masterstroke, or the final misstep of a man who waited too long to adapt? In Formula One, the world doesn't wait. It evolves, it forgets, and it punishes weakness. Redemption isn't handed out. It's earned in the fire of scrutiny, doubt, and relentless pressure. This isn't a matter of simply returning. This is about reshaping a legacy in real time. About confronting the narrative that others have written and forcing a rewrite through grit, precision, and defiance. If Horner joins Alpine, he won't just be taking a job, he'll be triggering a shift in the power balance. His presence alone will alter team dynamics, ignite media firestorms, and send ripple effects through driver decisions, executive agendas, and sponsor strategies. His name still holds weight. And if he's handed the keys, He'll make sure everyone feels it. Now all eyes turn to Alpine. To their decision-makers behind closed doors. To the conversations happening in hushed tones, in late-night meetings, in strategy sessions filled with uncertainty. Are they brave enough to break the pattern? Are they willing to hand the wheel to a man who doesn't follow rules, but rewrites them? Do they play it safe and remain forgettable, or do they ignite their story with a decision that will define their identity for years to come? And you, yes, you watching this, where do you stand? Is Horner the resurrection Alpine needs, or a risk too heavy to carry? Can he rebuild not just a team, but his own mythos? We want your thoughts, your reactions, your predictions. Drop them below. And once you've done that, don't miss the video glowing on your screen right now. It unpacks Alpine's unraveling from the inside and reveals why, despite everything, Christian Horner might be their last best hope.